Hi everyone, my name is Lisa. I have been teaching English as a second language for over 10 years now. Today's video is going to talk about how to get started with teaching English online. So I'm going to go through several things that you need to think about if you're just getting started or thinking about getting started teaching online. I will tell you it is not too late to get in the game, especially at the filming of this video. We are in the middle of a pandemic and so many things have moved online. There are still companies that are looking for teachers to teach English online. So let's get into it. First thing, number one, you need a TEFL certificate, TEFL. It stands for Teaching English as a Foreign Language. Sometimes you might hear it referred to as a TESOL certificate, TESOL, and that stands for Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages, essentially the same thing. How long will it take you to get this certificate? It's not difficult to get and it won't take you very long, and you can do it completely online. You might see companies offering 120 hours, 180 hours, so it's up to you and it's up to your budget, but you can do this online and it's self-paced. There's one company, iTOi. I didn't get my certificate from them, but they seem to have a pretty good program, easy website, good support. And I'll put the link in the description if you want to get your TEFL certificate, and that's the first thing that you need. I get questions about, do I need a bachelor's degree? The answer is no. If you have one, it helps. I wouldn't go out and get one or get working on one unless that was your plan anyway. There are many companies that will hire one without it. The minimum, at least, is to have your certificate, and then it's just a bonus if you have your bachelor's degree. And it could be in anything, even in basket weaving, as long as you have a bachelor's degree or experience. So some companies will take your experience and overlook you not having the bachelor's degree. So if you have any kind of teaching experience, make sure you put that on your resume or your application. Now, you have to also think about whether you want to teach adults or you want to teach children. You have to think about that, or both. Some companies are geared only to children. There are other companies that are geared only to adults, and there's some companies that would require you to teach both, where you don't have a choice. You have to teach both. So think about that. I've taught both. I started my career with teaching children, and it can be fun. You do have to be a little bit more enthusiastic. So if your personality is one where you can't be almost entertaining or happy every time you teach and smiling, and you don't like children, so you might want to stay away from teaching children. It's very different than teaching adults. So decide which one you want to get into. Likely though, when you first start out, you'll be teaching children. Not necessarily, but you can easily break into teaching children. A lot of companies hiring to teach Chinese children. For example, a lot of companies based in China, you might get an interview with them. So think about that. The next thing I want to talk about is pay. So the question is, how much will I get paid? So there's no easy answer. And I know people don't like to hear that, and I'll tell you why. First of all, you're not going to get rich doing that. So if you're in this to get rich, then you're in the wrong business, right? Teaching in general, you're not going to get rich. It is great to supplement something you do because often you can teach at any time because of the time zones involved. You have to remember most language schools are not based in America. So if that's where you are, for example, watching this video, I am based in the US. So there'd be other companies, if they're based in Germany, for example, I taught with companies that were based out in Germany. And so their students that they were getting, if they were from Europe, obviously would be a different time zone. So it would allow me to teach at a different time, perhaps after another job. So I worked at a learning center, for example, and then would teach a little bit in the morning. I can come home and teach a little bit in the evening because it's different times. So it helps supplement what I was doing. You can leverage your teaching also based on the currency. So you have to think about what currency will you get paid in? So again, that question, how much will I get paid? Well, if you, for example, are in the US, you're earning US dollars, you're also spending US dollars, right? But what if you have a company, for example, based in Germany, where they're paying you in euros and you're getting spending US dollars, right? So you're converting the euros to dollars. And if if the dollar is stronger or if the euro is stronger, you can see how you can actually make money or lose money. So think about the currency that you'll get paid in. Always a question that you need to ask when you apply for a company and get an interview. What is the currency that I'll get paid in? Sometimes you have no choice. Sometimes you do have a choice. Now, where are you living? So that's how you can leverage teaching online. And this is great for if you're thinking of being an expat and living in a different country, for example, the Philippines, where the US dollar versus the Filipino peso is 1 to 50. So if you're making $1, you're making 50 pesos. So that's pretty sweet. So think about that. Where you're living can make a difference. What is the currency that you'll be spending? That's how you can leverage teaching English online. So let's go to the next one here. Now, you have to think about where will the company allow you to teach from? As I mentioned, a lot of companies are not US based. Some are, but many are not. They might require you to teach from the US because sometimes connection is an issue. They might require that you be in select companies. They might have a list of you can only teach from here, 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 and here. So make sure that you're allowed to teach from where you are. Now, let's talk about connecting. So usually companies are concerned about connectivity. So you have to be hardwired in. So what that means is your Ethernet cable has to be directly plugged into your modem. You cannot use wireless or Wi-Fi. I will tell you probably 99% of companies will tell you no, you cannot be on Wi-Fi. So you have to have a strong connection. You have to have a camera. It has to be clear. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it has to be clear camera. You can use your tablet or computer. They usually don't say that you need a certain computer over a tablet. Some will require you not to use your phone. So often that is not allowed. So you have to make sure you're checking that. So also what they require, they might say you have to have, the minimum Windows 8, or you have to be using Windows 10. So I think a fairly up-to-date computer with a good internet connection, that's the key. And a camera is pretty much all you need. The other thing that you need to get comfortable with is being on camera. So most companies require that you turn on your camera. The student usually does not need to turn on their camera. It's usually not a requirement, but it's required you as a teacher. And that makes sense. You're teaching English as a second language. They need to see your lips moving, and it is easier to understand someone when you can see your lips. So the other thing too, you have to get used to is using one of these. Headset. Got to get a headset. Why? It is a lot easier to hear the student, and they could hear you clearly because of the mouthpiece. It is actually more difficult when you just have the sound coming out of your computer, and also you can hear more distractions. So it's just a clearer sound when you have a headset on, and that is often a requirement. Okay, so is everyone with me so far? So if you're checking off those boxes, then great. You're in good shape. Let's look at the next one. I will do a separate video on startup companies, like where do I get work? Who do I go to? I'll give you some good recommendations. And again, companies that I've worked for, I'm going to make a separate video on that. And we'll get to see more specifically about pay. Just going back to pay for a second, it is not easy to say how much you get paid. It varies widely. It varies widely because it depends on the company, whether you're teaching kids, whether you're teaching adults. Also, if you are doing this sort of on your own, you can make a lot more. And also whether it's private or group. So it just varies widely. There's no easy answer. If I had to tell you average starting out, $10 an hour, that would be my guess, how much you could make. I probably personally wouldn't accept less than that. About $10 is what you can expect. But again, you might think, oh, that's not a lot if you're in the US. spending and earning US dollars, but that's quite a bit if you're in another country. For example, I just use the Philippines because they have a good conversion rate right now, 1 to 50. Let's talk about being an independent contractor. So companies, you are not an employee. They will not give you insurance. So you have to remember you're an independent contractor. So they could end your agreement at any time, and you can also walk away at any time. Some of them do have that you require, tell them a month ahead or whatever, but they can sever you and fire you at any time. So if the quality of your classes is very poor, or you're showing up late or missing classes, they can just sever your contract. So you have to think about that. If for some reason it doesn't work out that company, what is going to be your backup plan? How are you going to make money? So I often say, think of teaching online to begin with as a supplement while you're doing something else until you get used to it and you can build up your hours. Hourly requirements vary from company to company, and most companies will not guarantee hours. So that's very different. So if you had a relationship where you're working for a company, right, they hired you and you're an employee, they can say, yes, we're going to give you 40 hours a week. You can't teach 40 hours a week typically, and companies will not guarantee you 40 hours a week. You have to think of it as part-time. Most will offer you part-time hours, and they're not always guaranteed depending on how they book students and also how they give the work out. They might email you as a first come, first service, and whoever responds first. Sometimes they have just a board where you're clicking to say you're available. So every company offers the work differently. And so you have to think about that. But there is very, very few companies that will guarantee you a certain amount of hours each week. So keep that in mind. Now, do you have to be a native speaker to teach? The answer is no. Nor can you say, well, I speak English, so therefore I can teach English. Right? You still have to have some teaching ability. You have to have a basic grasp of grammar, right? You just can't say I speak English. Getting back to being a non-native, often companies will hire you if you're non-native, and they like that because they can use you to teach the true beginners, those that know nothing about English. So if you are, for example, a Spanish speaker or a native Portuguese speaker, they'll say, hey, you can teach our beginners, the true beginners, and they'll use you for that because you can do some little translation for them. It's very helpful for beginners. By the way, students do learn faster if you don't translate everything for them, by the way. So you don't have to speak another language. I can't tell you. That's probably the number one question that I get when people say, Lisa, what do you do for work? I teach English as a second language. And the next question is, oh, so what other language do you speak? I don't speak any other language fluently, and you don't have to. So just get that out of your mind. You're not necessarily more profitable because you come to them and saying, I speak another language. Okay. So you can be a non-native and teach if you so choose. But again, that's also up to the company. So there are some companies who will require that you are native. They'll require that you have a neutral accent. So I have a neutral accent. Even though I'm native, I don't have an accent like I'm from Australia or that I'm from Britain. So there's some companies that don't want any accent. You have to be native and no accent, neutral accent. There are others who say that's fine. They don't care if you have a British accent or Australian accent as long as you're clear. And that is the point. You have to really be able to speak clearly. So again, you have to find out these questions before you waste your time applying. Do you have to have a neutral accent? Okay. And do you have to be native? There are many companies that will only hire native speakers. So make sure that you're going to check that out. So that is everything on my list for today on how to get started and some things to think about. So I will make some other videos. So please go ahead and smash the like button. Please subscribe. I'm going to put a series of videos on how to be successful. And I have been a successful online English teacher. And I'm going to share with you some methods about how to reach your students, how best to teach. And if you are a learner watching this video and you're interested in teaching English as a second language, I will help you also. You can look at my other sample videos of some things that for sure you have to have a good grasp on, topics that you have to have a good grasp on to be able to be a successful teacher and reach your students. So hopefully this was very helpful to you. Please leave a comment if you have any questions or any videos that you want me to make for you to answer any questions that you have. And also, I'll put my email there. You can feel free to email me if you have a question that you think is very important and you want answered. If you are a student watching this and you are interested in taking group conversation classes or need a private teacher, I can match you up. So I've partnered with a really good company and they have a really good platform and I trust them and they have good payment plans and they're very flexible. I can match up a very good teacher. You can go ahead and email me. All that info is in my description. Everyone, take care. See you next time.